Welcome into another edition of Silver Lining Podcast. I'm Adam. Next to me is Rex, and our guest today is April. You may recognize April. Rex and I were at Goat Yoga a couple of weeks ago here in Gilbert, Arizona. And just so happens that April provides the goats for Goat Yoga. And we got to talk to April. So April, first of all, thanks for coming on this podcast with us again today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
And April has a unique situation with our family tragedy that happened. So we'll talk to her about that. But before we get into all the heavy, deep things and thought processing, tell us a little bit about how you or why you are a goat trainer and how you and Sarah came together for Goat Yoga, the behind the scenes, if you will.
Yeah, it's pretty funny actually how it all came about. I was on American Ninja Warrior, and for the show, I have to have kind of a shtick, and so my shtick was I was working out with my goats and using them as my training partners. I put them on my back and do push-ups and squats and all sorts of things, and then they featured me on the show, and they called me the Goat Whisperer, and I got like so much attention for me and working out with my goats. And then Sarah, as you know, Sarah, she does all this yoga, and she's pretty funny in that way. She does like paddleboard yoga and stuff like that. And she just came to me and she's like, "You're already doing like yoga with the goats and working out with them. Like, let's just put it together and do goat yoga." And I was like, "That sounds so dumb. Let's do it." So I was like, "Yeah, we're on." And everyone made fun of us, our husbands, our family, our friends. But I mean, here we are 8 years later, and it's just still going.
Oh my gosh, that is great. Well, Rex, what did you think of Goat Yoga when you saw it for the first time in person?
Well, first of all, now are your husbands, family, and friends working for you at Goat Yoga? So a lot of people.
Yes, they are.
Okay. So they can make fun. You can laugh all the way to the bank.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love the way Sarah described it when she was on, saying it's, people spend their last dollar on family fun, on
clean family fun. Yeah,
that's exactly what it was. Is just so enjoyable, and part of that were, of course, April and Sarah made it so enjoyable.
And here's a situation too, and I think about this in life all the time. How do two people come together in life? And you both lived in Gilbert, Arizona, and it just so happened that you met and made a business out of goats and yoga. And I just love stories like that you can watch and watch just develop and be successful. I think it's fantastic. I love it. So anyways, thanks for sharing with us Goat Yoga a couple of Fridays ago. And now let's get into some of the things that we talked a little bit about at Goat Yoga in the middle of the Goat Yoga field. And so it was kind of, I don't know if it was inappropriate, but I just wanted to talk to you more about, because Rex had said he had talked to you earlier and that you had a perspective on Lori, my sister. And so when he said that, I was like, okay, tell me a little bit more. He did, and so that's why I asked you questions on our live a couple of weeks ago at Goat Yoga about Lori. So let's start from the beginning. Tell us about how you met my sister Lori.
Okay. Well, Lori and I were actually in the same ward, so same church, as you will, and then we have little sections, and so we're in the same neighborhood, so then they put us together, so we're in the same ward. And that's how I met their family. I knew Charles very well. My husband and Charles worked together. They were in Young Men's together. And Tylee is my daughter's age, so they were in Young Women's together. And yeah, see JJ walking around the church all the time.
You saw Charles and Lori chasing JJ around the church?
Yeah. So yeah, and Lori was the conductor she taught music for the primary. So
and this is important because Rex and I, when it comes to timelines, a lot of people that watch our podcast are always, playing second guesser. Why didn't you guys do this? Or why didn't you do this? And the timeline, I don't think people understand all the things that were going on during this whole time. So what timeline did you meet Lori? Do you remember what year it was? Because for me, everything's a blur.
It is kind of a blur, but gosh, they were in our ward for a while. Like they were in our ward for a while, and then and it was right before they moved to Mesa. So right before they moved to Mesa, where Charles tragically was killed. So
Yeah.
it was right before that. So it was all during that time.
So
They moved back from Hawaii when they lived in Hawaii into your ward, and they were there until just 2 months, I think, before Charles was killed.
Yeah.
So they must have been in your church, like, so it wasn't before they moved to Hawaii, it's when they came back from Hawaii.
Yeah.
So when was that? Was that 2020? 21? I don't know.
We're optimists will tell us, so just
Somebody,
check the comments.
no doubt. Okay. So how long, was it a year did you know her? Was it 4 months? Was it 3 months? Was it longer or shorter than that? Like how long would you estimate that she was in your ward where you were with?
I'm trying to remember, but it was at least a year.
A year. Okay.
I'm trying to remember how long when they moved in there, but I mean, it was a while.
Okay. So at least you have, so just for reference, it's at least a year where you had contact with Lori and observed her at church and all that stuff.
Right. I don't remember exactly when they moved in, but yeah, it was a while.
Okay. And so, there's a lot of people who claim that Lori has been this vindictive person her whole life and has fooled everybody her whole life, that she's been evil her whole life. And then now the true evil Lori just emerged at the right time, but she was evil this whole time. And Rex and I have tried to tell people, look, from our perspective, me being her brother, growing up with her, knowing her my whole life, I never saw any of that. Obviously, she didn't make the best choices with her husbands, and she obviously had other issues to deal with, but being evil and vindictive and all that stuff, I just didn't see it. From your perspective, for the year you knew her at church, kind of describe how Lori was to you, to your kids, to the people at church, all that.
I wish I could say that she was obviously a monster. It would make a lot more sense, but, and I hate saying this, but she really was like the nicest person. She was the best mom. Like highly loved her mom so much, which breaks my heart, but she just raved about her mom. Like on her Instagram post, she's just talking about how much she loves her mom. Like they were really, really, really close, especially, going from all the husbands and whatnot, they had a really close relationship. And JJ too, like they were really close. Charles every Sunday would talk about how much he loved Lori, and if there was anything negative, we kind of thought like Lori was maybe a little bit of a gold digger, but that was like the only thing that I could say negative about her, just because she was like so much younger and stuff. But I mean, if I had to say anything negative, that was the only thing that we were like assuming, but whatever.
Well, what kind of as far as like when she would teach in primary or talk to anybody that you observed, did you ever hear her tell anybody, hey, the end of the world is coming and we need to get prepared, you need to come to these prepare the people meetings? Or did she do any of that with anybody that you know?
I knew some people in the circle that testified. So I know she did talk, to some of my friends about that, but it wasn't an open, like every Sunday announcing type of thing. It was only like if you're really, really like, if she felt comfortable sharing things with you. But she was a very religious person, but which is a good thing. but Satan uses every aspect. He'll, you think you know someone, that's what's the real scary part.
Mm-hmm. So when your friends or people in the church, when Lori would say something like that, come to this meeting, or felt comfortable about telling you like, oh, I had this experience, or I saw Moroni, or whatever she told people, why is it that the people that she told that to didn't run to the police or run to somebody to say, Lori has lost her mind, somebody's got to do something?
Yeah, I don't know. It was just little by little, I think, is what it was. So nothing really like stood out. And surely anyone that might appear like holier than thou or too spiritual, you would never think that they were going to, murder their family. You might just think that, oh, okay, that's a good view on your side, but you would never think anything of that. There weren't any like red flags, really.
So Rex, how would you diagnose that situation? Have Lori at church talking to other people, and then them just accepting what she said or ignoring it, or because I know you and I have been criticized for not doing something about it. We're adults and we didn't do something about Lori. Rex and I have both been criticized about this.
Well, yeah, related to all of our common experience. Anytime we're doing something that our conscience says, that's not a good idea, you probably shouldn't do that, we come up with a mechanism to deal with that internal struggle. And we will portray it to whom we want to portray it and to no one else. We all know Lori did that. We all know she portrayed the person she wanted to be to whomever it is she was with at the time. She's still doing that. We know that from her statement at sentencing, how there's certain things she said, certain things she didn't bring into that statement, so same, she goes to church and she's just, a kind of a very above average church, what am I trying to say, enthusiast, okay, and playing the church role. And Adam and I have said several times, April, we can't see into the hearts and mind of anyone, much less Lori. We never saw into our hearts and mind. And all of us know that at some point, Lori stepped on a path that eventually led to the despicable evil she did, but we don't know when that path started. It's the same. I mean, she's having the same human experience we're all having. We all get on a path, and somewhere, fortunately, our conscience has reined us in, so we haven't gone as far as Lori did. But we don't know when she got on that path and who she was saying to what, because she is so deliberate about it. At some point, those paths diverge enough that you have to choose one path or the other, and it becomes obvious to people around you. Now we know, basically the timeline that she had to choose that path was right around the time that she was there with you in Gilbert. She chose that path, went off of it. 2 months, 3 months after she moved out of your ward, Charles was dead. So you were there during the unhinging, so to speak, but she didn't make it obvious to the people at church, except for a few that she was talking to while she was on the other path. And that's why we never saw it, Adam. She approached you, didn't gain your trust in that arena, the end of days and all that. She didn't even approach me. Sometimes wonder if I should feel offended. But, she approached you, and so she didn't portray anything else to you. In fact, she basically cut you off, and she cut off different members of the family at different times. That's just the game she played and is still playing today.
So with that being said, going back to April at church, Lori had different callings that she was doing, and had interaction with kids, had interaction with adults. What did you see as she was in primary, or What were people saying about, anything strange was happening, or was everybody or is Lori the greatest actor in the history of the world, where she could just turn on her acting and then we all just feel like, oh, well, I don't see anything, because maybe she's acting and playing a completely different person her whole life until recently, then now she's who she really is.
Yeah. I mean, she was great. As far as like anyone else concerned, she was just very spiritual and very active in the church, going to the temple every week. I believe she worked there, just like what you would think a, very upright LDS, what you would think. So there weren't any red flags or anything. And when people talk about their spiritual experiences, sometimes they sound a little bit like, but they're never really red flags. Like when she told you she was immortal or whatever, it's just like, okay, but you're not going to run to the police. It's just like a little like, it's a little weird, but whatever.
Well, my whole thing is, I believe that everybody can have whatever spiritual experience you're going to have. If you read in the Bible, a lot of people claim they had all kinds of different spiritual experiences. And I think everybody's entitled to whatever God, if you believe in God, shows you or whatever. And I think we're all different and we're all unique. And I believe in God. I think he knows each one of us individually. So it's hard for me to discern if somebody says, oh, I had a face-to-face with Jesus, or I met Moroni, or whatever it is. The problem I have with that is, if that really happened, I don't know if I would tell anybody. Everything would be inside. I would never tell anybody any of it, right? So I think that when Lori got on this path and she was talking around other people who claimed that they had all these special experiences, that she wanted to be part of that group. And since she didn't have any, that she just started making up these spiritual experiences so she could be part of this, whatever group it was. And so with that being said, that's another part of me when, she said certain things, I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds crazy, especially if you see Jesus or whatever it is. I don't think that you would be going and telling everybody. I personally, that's what I think. I would just be between you and him or you and whoever. So those were red flags to me, that she would go around bragging, because what's the opposite of Jesus is humble, not prideful. And it seemed like she was very prideful, that she was this top layer person.
Exactly. And unless it was like, oh, I saw Jesus or anything like very like over the top type like that, or, I'm immortal or anything, if she's saying things like, you don't question other people's spiritual experiences, and certainly you don't go to the police or think that anything really bad is going to come out of it. So I respect everybody's, spiritual experiences and,
right.
Things like that. But yeah, exactly what you said. I don't think I would be bragging about certain experiences, because even experiences I have, they're sacred to me.
Right. So, I mean, there probably were some red flags somewhere and some green flags and all kinds of flags out there that it's hard when you're going through your own life and you have family members or friends that you think are changing a little bit. You don't really feel like, what can I do? I remember telling my parents, look, Lori is going down a crazy path. We got to do something. And their response to me was, she's a grown adult. You're not going to go put her in handcuffs and take her somewhere, And so I guess there's a weird line between family members and friends of how do you get somebody help without, I mean, I just don't just leave it like that. How do you get somebody help if they're not wanting to get help or anything like that? Rex, I don't know what the right answer for that is.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that. And I'm pretty convinced that the mental health world either doesn't have also doesn't have an answer. And I'm saying this, I'm interjecting now. Something similar during that time is Lori was compelled basically to go do a psychological eval. Good heavens, my wife's in the medical profession. She said in her office, it's a women's health clinic, there are 5 providers. If a woman comes in with a medical issue, it's very possible, if she saw all 5 providers, to walk out with a different plan, a different diagnosis, a different plan. Because the medical world's not that exact. Now take the mental health world, it is even less exact. So the fact that she could go into a mental health facility and pass with flying colors means she talked to a mental health person, she portrayed herself the way she wanted to, and they said, well, what can I do? I can't see inside her brain. What, based on a few questions, an hour, 2 hours, do we hold her for a year and see if she changes? That's not realistic. So I don't blame the mental health world for that. And, she got out and is running around. There's just so much you can do until there is a reason to do it. And we all wish the police would have paid more attention to Charles when we see the body cam footage on that. That is just heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking because Charles was not trying to get protection from the police for himself. He's trying to help Lori because he loved Lori. And Lori was the mother of their children. And it's just heartbreaking, but what could they do?
Right. The other thing too, Rex, is like, I've read some comments on our podcast, even on YouTube, and people want to criticize also the leaders of our church. How could they let Lori do this? And I mean, literally, you can go into any bishop and tell any bishop anything you want, right? And so I don't know. The reason we're doing kind of this podcast too is to get a little bit more perspective about Lori and what she was like at church, or just from another person's perspective. And, but with that being said, also, since we are talking about church, a lot of people are blaming our church for Lori and Chad. And why didn't they do anything to stop it? Again, I think we're on the same path of like, what could they do, and what did they even think or know?
And when you say they, and you talk about the church, some people are thinking the Mormon church headquarters in Salt Lake. They don't know what's going on in 13 million members' lives.
Right.
And sure, they read the news like anyone else, and probably were heartbroken that a church member would perpetrate such evil. But even the local leaders, how would they know what she's doing, going to prepare people? And, unless there's something really concrete that would draw them into it, they aren't trying to control all the lives of the members of the ward. They're just trying to get out of the freaking meetings they have to sit through for hours on end.
No doubt. April, why? I want to talk to you too, because you said your daughter was friends with Tyler, same age, right?
Yes.
Did your daughter say anything about Tylee being distraught ever, or, have any red flags with Tylee? Did she ever say anything to your daughter about her mom's going crazy or anything like that?
Well, not while they were in our ward, but when they moved to Mesa, I know one of Tylee's very best friends, they moved to Mesa, and Tylee was regularly texting her, and then all of a sudden she stopped texting. And so she had thought that she was upset or whatnot, because before she stopped texting, she started saying things like, my mom's kind of lost it. My mom thinks I'm a zombie. She did start to say those things to my friend, her friend.
Your daughter's friend, yeah.
Yeah. Tylee's best friend. Yeah. Anyway, Tylee did start telling her things like that. And then I know she was really upset about having to move to Idaho. And then all of a sudden, all communication stopped. And so her friend obviously thought like she was mad at her or something. And then sporadically there would be like, she would say like, hey, how are you? And then Tylee would answer back like, fine, or short answers. Obviously, probably Lori answering the questions, but yeah, I think she kind of knew something was going on, something weird, because Tylee was aware that her mom was thinking she was a zombie.
Wow. See, I didn't know that. I mean, I didn't know that Tylee. So that was that was the other issue that I beat myself up over it. Rex is, telling me to have grace on myself. But the last time I saw Tylee alive was at my mom and dad's house, and we had that huge fight, and I saw Tylee, and I didn't talk to her. Zach didn't talk to her. We didn't know what to say to her. It was just after Charles got killed. She didn't look like, I don't know, she was upset or sad, or I just wish at some point we would have had a communication to where she could have been like, Mom's lost it. I want to go with you. Or I don't know. I just always think about those things, of what ifs and all that stuff. But it's just hard to, when you look back at it, it's hard to say, what could I have done different? Because Lori and Chad had their path of what they wanted to do. And I don't know how we could have, what difference we could have made in that. So I don't know. It's a heartbreaking situation when you think about it anyway. It's heartbreaking. How is your daughter and Tylee's friends that, how did they deal with the news and all that?
Very hard. Very, very, very hard. A lot of therapy. Yeah, it was a very precious age, 17. It's a very, very precious age. And to have something so horrific happen and to just have known her, for her to just have barely moved out of the ward, everything was really close. Tylee was in the hospital all the time when she was sick all the time. And so the young women would always go visit her in the hospital, and we'd pray for her, help her feel better. Yeah. So she was just, I don't know, a big part of the ward as a whole. And just for something, so tragic to happen at such a young age for everyone, it was really hard for the girls especially.
April, let me mention, I appreciate you bringing that up, because people started questioning even that, that was Tylee really sick? Did Lori really spend hours with her in the hospital? And heck, I was never in the hospital. I knew that was going on, but I was taking Janice's word for it, who a lot of times was taking Lori's word for it. Could that have been part of her gaslighting? You're saying, no, that's a reality. Tylee was in there a lot. Lori was in there with her. Friends were visiting her. Praying for her, fasting for her. That was a good perspective for me when you shared that there in Arizona. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, she was. She was in the hospital quite a bit.
Yeah, Tylee had pancreatitis, was sick a lot, in the hospital a lot. And, that's a true thing. I know people question that too. That people are questioning everything. And that's fine. Everybody can question, because it's such a crazy thing. And there were so many lies told. We have to discern what was a lie and what isn't a lie, because it was so much lying, there was also truths to things too. So not every single thing is a lie, not every single thing is true. So that's where we're trying, and as far as this podcast goes, Rex and I are trying to make sure that we get the truth out about whether it's terrible or it looks bad on us or our family or whatever it is. We just want to make the truth. We just want the truth to be out there. And so that's something great that you brought up, that at least people can put that to rest. Going forward, knowing what you know now about Lori's situation, how would you deal with a friend or a family member that maybe, was going off into that kind of pathway, and it's really not off the pathway completely? So it's still like, do you get involved? Do you not get involved? Do you tell somebody? Do you have other families rally? Do you have a get together? I mean, what would you do?
Yeah, it's really hard to say, because in the Lori situation, I feel like it accelerated so fast that by the time Tylee or, Charles or anyone knew that they were like zombies was only, months very soon before they actually ended up passing away. So what appeared to be just very ultra spiritual to, immortal was it accelerated really fast. So, and no one would have known, anything like this would have happened. So it would be really hard. Like once people start calling people zombies and things like that, it's more obvious. But she wasn't openly saying those kind of things until right before.
So what would you do if a friend came to you and said, "Hey, I think I'm turning immortal. You're a 3 light and your friends are 4 darks," and they just, at that point, it sounds comical. Literally, it sounds comical. If somebody said that to me, I'd be like, "Are you kidding? Are you joking? Or is this? Are you really think this? Or is this for real? Or how would you deal with it if you were in a situation where somebody was doing that?"
Yeah. Well, definitely now opinions have changed. And even if she started saying that openly to people, I think there would have been, a little bit of like intervention with like the bishop and church leaders. Certainly she wouldn't be like being able to work in the temple and things like that, because a lot of that is sacrilegious, So had she been open and started saying these kind of things before, like, there would have been some sort of intervention as far as that goes. Yeah. But now, like if my sister or something started saying those things, I would, probably say she needed to get checked in somewhere, help somewhere. But
what would you do about it? That's the question.
I know.
Yeah. What do you do about it?
I know, because it's not, even Charles, he was telling the police these things that she was going to murder him, He was saying these things like bluntly, and still like, what happened? Like, nothing. She was a very good manipulator. Like, she can pass all the crazy exams and stuff. Like, you just don't say some things, you just don't say like, yeah, I'm immortal, you just, I think anyone can pass those kind of things. Yeah. But you know what? That's a really hard question, because, that is a really
would you feel comfortable going to your mom and dad or somebody close in your family and be like, "Look, my sister's losing it.
Yeah.
This is what she said." And then what would you do if they said, "No, that's just her. She's just going through something." And you're genuinely concerned.
Yeah, if I'm genuinely concerned, I would call the police.
Yeah.
But would anything be done?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Well, if there's no crime committed, what do
probably
the police
not
do? And this is the thing that Rex and I have been going over and over.
What can you do?
What do you do?
Right. What do you do when your sister says that you're immortal and they can take a bullet? It's just kind of like, what do you do? You just kind of think they're a little, we all kind of have crazy people in our family. Let's admit it, like, but you never think it's going to be that. It wasn't like that big of a red flag. And, until she started saying she's going to kill people, then yeah, but that would have been different if you'd known that.
Rex, any other things you want to bring up in the podcast with April?
No, I want to thank April for this perspective, because, when we meet someone that knew Lori, or when we met April who knows Lori, we gained a different perspective. That's why we wanted to share it, invited April on the podcast. Thank you, April, for coming on the podcast. Not everyone can do this, and we respect that completely. There have been many people that have declined coming on, because not everyone's wired to do this and to share something so unbelievable.
Really unbelievable.
Share their connection with it. So thank you for being part of that, because everyone that's listening wants to just make sense of this, and figure it out. And so your perspective, I think, helps. Well, it helped me, and obviously it helped Adam. I'm sure it helped everyone that's listening. So thank you.
Yeah, there's really, you can't make sense of it, actually. It's just, and I also kind of want to give like Charles and Tylee and JJ like a voice. Like they kind of got brushed over, I feel like, like we never were able to go to like Charles' funeral or anything like that. They were really, really great people. And it's too bad like the Woodcocks aren't really able to mourn because it's just gotten covered by the tragedy, but they were really, really great people, really close family, as your family seems like really close.
Yeah, it's been the whole thing with Charles's body and the kids' remains and all that stuff, and funerals or celebration of life or all that. It's one of those things again where our families, I think, split and just what to do and how to do it. Everything is so difficult about it because this case was so horrific, and it just blew a hole everywhere in our family. So, yeah, those are all things that we didn't get to I haven't really done or who knows what's going to happen with everything. So, anyways, thank you for coming on with us. Good luck with Goat Yoga. If you ever go to Gilbert, Arizona, go to Goat Yoga. It will be a treat for everybody. And April, you've been a ray of light for us, and thanks for coming on with us. And if you need anything from Rex and I, we're here.
All right. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it really has been a pleasure.